And I'm a clinical nutritionist. I'm in the space of helping people lose weight and improve metabolic health. I've been at it for 30 years this year. I've done a lot in the space, and that's what you see up on the screen. Um, Companies I've worked with in the past, companies I still work with, companies I'm sure I'll continue to work with. And I still sit on quite a few boards to include being on the Presidential Task Force on Obesity for the National Medical Association. And everything that I share with you tonight is substantiated so we can make that information available to you. And if you click and read the article that I wrote, many of the citations are there so you can easily go look up everything that I share tonight. That being said, I am also on the advisory board for a company called Zenzino, and I'm also an endorser of the product. So, full disclosure, we're going to be talking about this product called Balance Oil, and we're going to talk about a test that we refer to as Balance Tests. This gentleman that you see up front, his name is Dr. Andrew Wild. He's someone I met in 2002. He was talking about what we're going to talk about tonight back then, which is 23 years ago, and he's still talking about it. So let's hear it from his words, the importance of omega-3 fatty acids.
Probably the most significant nutritional deficiency in this population is omega-3 fatty acids. The amount of research accruing on the health benefits of omega-3 fatty acids is overwhelming, not just for physical health, but for mental health. I think you can't be in optimum health if you do not have adequate intake of omega-3s. Most of us are not getting enough.
Okay, if you notice, I jump right into it because I have a lot to cover tonight. So we now know that this presentation has something to do with omega 3s. And that's Dr. Andrew Wild. He said that most of us are not getting enough of it, omega 3s. He also said that if you want to be in optimal health, you must be getting an adequate amount of omega 3s.
Probably the
This is Dr. Robert Lustig, and I'm bringing him up because he's very knowledgeable, very popular as well. Definitely in the academic world, he has over 100 published papers. Very respected by doctors all over the world. The same as Dr. Andrew Wild, and again, he doubles down on the importance of omega-3. Listen closely.
The most important and the most valuable fatty acid is omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s are heart healthy, they are anti-inflammatory, they are anti-Alzheimer's because they contribute to neuronal structure and function. And it has been shown that when you are omega-3 deficient, you get multiple diseases, including cardiovascular disease and depression. And omega-3s are very sparse in our diet. We don't get enough.
You know, my mom saw him say this, and she says, "Son, what does sparse mean?" And I said, "Well, sparse has everything to do with what do you call it? When it's just not available easily." Okay.
probably the most
So now we're going to look at Dr. Artemis Samopoulos. She is the most respected endocrinologist in the world. And let's listen closely to what she has to say about the importance of omega-3 fatty acids, as well as the ratio or this thing called the balance of omega-6 to omega-3.
What is very important is the composition of the fat, the essential fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3. And it's really frightening to think that after all the research funded with taxpayers' money, today, the latest dietary guidelines for Americans do not mention the importance of the ratio of omega-6, omega-3, or the concept of a balance. It's not a matter that you have low amounts of omega-3s. It's the fact that a high amount of omega-6 and a low amount of omega-3, as it is in Western diets today, they influence the function of every cell membrane in the body. And the cell membranes consist of both omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, and it is important that they are balanced.
Okay. So I want you to think of this. We're building a case We've had three prominent, very respected physicians talk about the importance of omega 3. We had Dr. Simopoulos, who has hundreds of published papers on the importance of omega 6 to omega 3. She's 92 years old. She's a living icon. So let's just assume, as I build the case on the importance of omega 3, that it's real. And let's assume that this balance of omega 6 to omega 3 is real and very important, even though you may not have heard about this from your doctors. Now, I want to shift and kind of move into my world to set the stage and share with you that I believe that there's two categories of diets. We could argue maybe a third one, but I believe all diets are going to fall into one of two categories. So I call it two types of diets. The first diet is what I refer to as an elimination diet. Now, if someone doesn't eat carbs and they've been eating carbs, let's say bread and pasta and rice, they're probably going to lose weight. If someone drinks alcohol on a regular basis and then they go, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore, they're probably going to lose weight. If someone avoids ultra processed foods and they've been eating it pretty regularly, they're probably going to lose weight. So the people doing like the carnivore, the keto, the Atkins, when you avoid food groups, you eliminate those things, you're probably going to lose weight. And you're probably going to feel pretty good. And what happens is people give credit to those diets, even though it's not something they can live with for the rest of their life. But we're so good at dieting, and we're so proud to be able to point and say what made our diet better. At the end of the day, most people are eliminating certain things, and that's why they're getting results, sometimes for the short term and not usually for the long term. Okay, so we have elimination. Then we have what we call essential diet. An essential diet is when I'm looking at foods that you must eat in order to live. If you don't get certain things in your body, certain minerals, certain vitamins, also certain amino acids, as we think about protein, then you can eventually die. And as you're moving toward death or that type of decline, then you'll find yourself experiencing some health hardships. And the same thing happens with essential acids, fatty acids like omega 6 and omega 3. So think of it, we got these two. Certain things you must consume. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is like you don't have to eat carbohydrates to live. Like you don't have to eat fruit. You don't have to eat vegetables in order to live. Now, eating those things will help you thrive, and there's some protection benefits. But when you don't eat carbs, our bodies are unique and they will actually create carbs from the inside. But if you don't get enough of protein in the form of essential amino acids, the word essential, then that's not a good thing, and you could eventually die. And along that path, you will experience quite a few negatives. The same thing happens with omega 6 and omega 3 fatty acids. They are essential, meaning you must consume them. And I'm going to walk you down that path of what can happen and what is happening to people who go long periods of time without getting an adequate amount of those essentials. And we're talking specifically omega 3. Now, when you look at our cells, we have trillions of cells. And I just want to go over this real quick just to kind of help you realize like what makes up this thing called a membrane. So every cell has a membrane, and that membrane is very, 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 very important. And we want that membrane to be in a healthy place, which we call being fluid. And when it's fluid, nutrients and oxygen can easily get into the cell, and a whole bunch of very positive things can take place because the nutrients get into the cell. If that membrane is not fluid, it's rigid, meaning nutrients are struggling and oxygen to get into the cell. Therefore, you're not optimizing health from a cellular standpoint. Now, your cell membrane is made up of quite a few things: carbohydrates, you have proteins in there, you have cholesterol, you have saturated fat, and you have omega 6 and you have omega 3s. And the cell membrane becomes rigid, which I'm going to double down on this, oftentimes when you don't get enough of omega 3s. And when you don't get enough of omega 3s, that cell membrane becomes rigid, and a lot of the nutrients and oxygen doesn't quite get in to work its magic. So, on a cellular level, when you're not getting enough omega 3s, you don't have what we call optimal cellular health. Kind of going back to what Dr. Andrew Wild mentioned. Okay. Now let's talk about what happens when you exercise, right? In the United States, we have more gyms and more focus on exercise than any other country in the world. Okay. Now, exercise is a positive thing, and we all benefit from exercising. Exercising also works like a shield and will protect you when you're not getting adequate amount of nutrition. But something happens when you exercise that causes this thing called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is something that is formed before that. It's called reactive oxygen species. And not to get scientific, but it can create DNA damage. It can damage the cell, and the cell is not able to maximize and do the things that we need it to do when you're not exercising. Now, a little bit of stress is good, but the better shape you get in and the more you can work, the more potential damage is taking place. So, exercise 1000% is known to create some serious challenges. Okay. And if it was up to me, I would tell you that exercise, when it comes to like those who or nutrients, when it comes to exercise, I would say where we're headed with this omega 3s arguably is more important than how much protein you're getting. And I'm going to bring clarity to that. Okay. Because most people know about protein. So there's 5 things that I want to go over, and I'm going to recommend you take notes because I don't. This is in my article, so you don't have to take notes if you're going to get the article. Number 1, exercises increases inflammation. So when you work out, you create these things called microinflammation, right? And it causes distress on the muscles. And when that happens, it interferes with your body's ability to maintain and hold those omega 3s in the cell. Matter of fact, when you eat a diet high in omega 6, which is called seed oils, and you experience this type of induced inflammation, the body will shift things around and not utilize the omega 3s and preferably use the omega 6s because it's thinking, I need to spare the omega 3s, and the omega 3s never get utilized. So the omega 6 crowd them out, and then that makes it where you're on a cellular level, you're more inflamed. That's not good. Okay. Number 2, frequent training and cell turnover. Okay. And I'm going to read this from the article. Every workout stimulates the body to build and repair new cells. These cells are made largely of fats in the membranes. If your diet, your nutrition habits, does not provide enough omega 3, your body fills those membranes with omega 6 instead. Over time, this lowers your omega 3 inside of the cell, and that creates a rigid cell instead of a fluid cell. Not good. Omega 3s burn as fuel. While carbs and fats are the main fuels during exercise, omega 3s can also be burned in the mitochondria. That's the powerhouse inside of your cells during endurance and high intensity training. This means that active people use more of their omega 3s than sedentary people. And what you notice when we do the test, which I'm going to show you, people who work out a lot, their numbers are not as good as people who don't work out a lot. And that's because they're not getting enough omega 3s, and it puts them even more out of balance. Even though they look like they're fit, on a cellular level, they're not. Then we have sweat and nutrient loss. Exercisers lose more minerals and antioxidants because we exercise, right? And that includes vitamin E through our sweat. Vitamin E normally protects omega-3 fatty acids from damage, and without that protection, omega-3s are broken down even faster, and that puts you at more risk. And number 5, omega-3s boost metabolism and protect your muscle. A lot of people don't know this, but when you take a product like balance oil, just because you're getting an adequate amount of omega-3s, your body, and there are studies that support this, will burn more calories. You rev up your metabolism, over 200 more calories are burned a day compared to people who don't take the balance oil. So when you go down the list, omega-3s are extremely important. And they also have been proven to protect skeletal muscle, which means increases in what they call protein synthesis. So if your goal is to build muscle, preserve muscle, you must make sure you have an adequate amount of omega-3. All right. Now, people who exercise are always trying to build muscle. When you build muscle, you must eat an adequate amount of protein. That doesn't mean that everything is about protein. When you consume protein, an adequate amount, and there's an amino acid called leucine. When leucine is present, this is what we stress for breakfast. I tell people all the time. It turns on this switch called mTOR. And mTOR makes it possible for protein synthesis to take place, meaning you can actually build muscle. Okay. Now, someone in the background has their sound. I keep hearing them every once in a while, so make sure we're muted. So protein consumption is helping turn on mTOR. Insulin, which is part of our body, what we have in our pancreas that's available, is helping to make all of this work, and omega-3s make it work as well. Now, here's the part that I really, 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 really want to stress, and then we're going to go into the presentation. We talk about cell damage when you don't have enough omega-3s. We know that 99% of everybody who's not taking balance oil, we know that they don't have an adequate amount of omega-3s. We know that because of testing. It causes inflammation in the body. And over time, it shows up in heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's. There's 26 conditions that you see up here on the screen. All of these come about when you go long periods of time without having an adequate amount of omega-3s on a cellular level. I want you to really think about what I just said. Think about when lupus showed up or gout. You don't run into a 13-year-old young boy with gout. You don't see people with some like rheumatoid arthritis at 14. Over time, when you're not getting an adequate amount of omega-3s, everyone is susceptible to certain conditions being expressed. This is what we keep talking about again and again and again. We live in a world, in a society since the 1960s where the omegas has gotten worse and worse and worse. One, we're out of balance, which I'm going to show you. Two, we're not getting enough omega-3s. And when you have that cellular damage, over time, maybe it's this year for some, maybe it happened 4 years ago. Maybe someone you know is dealing with some stuff that's fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease. All those things that tied into inflammation start being expressed. And what happens is we get in the habit of putting Band-Aids on it, either taking some other drug or some other medication, and never, ever looking at the fact that we have very low levels of omega-3. Because if you correct it there, you can do cellular repair. So a healthy cell membrane is going to look like what you see on the right. An unhealthy cell membrane, which is over 90% of the population, is on the left. We want to be on the right. We want nutrients to easily get in and not have to struggle. If people are walking around tired, fatigued, a lot of that goes back to what's taking place inside of your cells. It's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And when those levels are low, you have people saying things like, oh man, I'm tired. I don't have the same get up and go. It throws off a lot of stuff. So the goal is to get healthier. And to set it up, and we're going to dive right in. Here's 60 seconds of a lady explaining the benefits of making sure you have an adequate amount of omega-3. And then I'm going to bring clarity to all of this by taking you through a quick part of the presentation.
Omega-3 fatty acids literally act like an FDA-approved drug for the body. The benefits are just so astronomical. They downregulate inflammation. They help with cell membrane fluidity. They help with getting rid of the amyloid in the brain. We know that it actually can help with increases in muscle mass. If you have an omega-3 fatty acid level or an omega index of 8% or more, you have increased your life expectancy by 5 years. Even for women who are trying to preserve their egg quality over time, they're even showing now that omega-3 index improves egg quality with women who have got diminished ovarian reserve over the age of 40. Honestly, best thing for you to do. 4% is what the average population is right now, omega-3 index, which raises your risk of all-cause mortality. It's actually on the same spectrum of a pack-a-day smoker, having a low omega-3 index of 4%. And make sure you're getting it from a reputable company, know where it's sourced, and the quality of the products, because a lot of these omega-3s can be rancid.
Okay. She set it up. So how do you know if you have enough omega-3? Here's the good news. You take a test. You take a test that you can do at home. You prick your finger. It doesn't hurt. You can do it for kids, grandkids, older people, younger people. And then you let the blood dry on these little circles inside of the test. It's about the size of a 3x5 card. You put it in a self-addressed envelope. They have done all the work for you. And in 10 to 20 business days, you get your results. And I'm going to show you what the test results look like. Now, you may be thinking, well, who does the test? Well, the test goes to this company called Vetus. Vetus Analytical is a laboratory in Norway. They are the number one facility in the world that does this type of testing. They don't just do it for you and I. They do it for Harvard Public Health, the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, Tufts University, National Institute of Health, World Health Organization. They are the gold standard. They are third party, independent, has nothing to do with the company that I'm representing, Zenzino. When that test comes back, you don't have to guess anymore, and you will know exactly if the product's working or where you are in the beginning. So this is as real as it gets. Anyone who wants better health, you got to get the test. Like, you can't tell me you want to be in better health and not know where your omega-3 levels are, because it impacts every cell in your entire body. And if you want to take other supplements, hey, God bless, take every supplement you want. But on a cellular level, if your membrane is not healthy, then you're not really benefiting from all that extra money you're spending on those extra supplements. So everybody benefits from this. So for clarity, we've talked about some numbers. You have omega-6. That is a fatty acid. It is essential, as we talked about. Your body does not make it. The problem with omega-6 is that we get too much of it. And because we get too much of it, then we become inflamed. Or, as I mentioned earlier, if you're exercising a lot, then omega-3s get burned up. Omega-6 kind of repositions itself to be utilized inside of the cell because the 3 is not there. So you create an imbalance because you're exercising. And I'm saying that because you can exercise, just make sure you're getting enough omega-3s. Right? Then we have omega-3s. We know that they're also essential. Your body does not make them. And the problem is that we don't get enough of them. That's why we're talking about supplementing. And when you do get enough of them, they help bring down inflammation in the body. And then Dr. Simopoulos talked about this ratio. She said that's more important than anything. So the first number when we talk about ratios is omega-6. The second number represents omega-3. And the ratio is the first number compared to the second number, 3, 2, 1 is how you would read that. If the 3, or if it's 2.5, if it's 1, if it's 2.0, anything 3 or lower puts you in what we call the safe zone. After that, it's a little cautionary, and then we have this thing called the danger zone. And we don't want to be in the danger zone because that means increased risk for everything that we've talked about. That also is telling us that you do not have an adequate amount of omega-3s on a cellular level. So that means that on the cellular level, it's just a matter of time when you're out of balance before something shows up or something gets worsened, because inflammation is real, and that's what we're addressing here. Now, here's a snapshot of 4 women. They all have a story. If you look to the very far left, this is a hunter-gatherer in Tanzania. Her ratio is perfect. They still eat from the earth. They don't eat ultra-processed foods. And this is where we come from. Everybody. 1-to-1 is good. And we know that they're extremely healthy because they don't die of heart disease. Cancer is extremely rare. Nobody's obese. And they have like the healthiest gut recorded in modern day recorded history. Then you got the woman B, who works out all the time. She doesn't realize it, but she's out of balance. She's 46-to-1, and on the cellular level, the only thing saving her right now is the fact that she works out. But a whole bunch of negatives are building up because she's out of balance. And we all know someone who worked out all the time and they looked great. They had a blood clot, they had a stroke, they had a heart attack out of nowhere. Everybody's like, what? Okay, so these people look a certain way, but they're not a certain way. Then you have this lady who works out. She's the mom of 2, 41-to-1. But she works out. And we talked about if you're working out, your body is like eating up those omega-3s, so they're not making it into the cells. That means that the cell is not as healthy as you would like it to be. The membrane fluidity is not there. It's rigid, not a good thing on a cellular level. Then we got this lady to the far right. She's not where she would like to be, but, she's going to get there. And I'm going to give you some examples, starting with this little kid. Here's a kid who got tested, who's 45-to-1. This kid happens to be autistic. And at this time, when he did his very first test, he couldn't even hold a pencil, which means he couldn't draw inside of the lines. He was nonverbal and started taking the balance oil. You can see that he's now 2.3-to-1. He now can hold a pencil. He can draw inside the lines, and he's talking. And if you listen closely to Dr. Lustig, he referred to the benefits of being in balance with omega-6 to 3 or having enough omega-3 and how it helps with battling depression, and it helps with cognition, memory, brain fog, etc. Here's a snapshot of a test that someone had done. You get 20 pages, but on page 5, you get everything summarized here. That very first number is 27-to-1, which is telling you what your balance is. Everybody can get this test. If you're not going to take the balance oil, get the test. And we know that just by taking the balance oil, the 27 is going to go down. And we recommend people wait 4 months or 120 days before you retest. That's the life of a red blood cell. Then to the far right, you get a snapshot of what they call protection value. What they do here is they take 3 different health markers, omega-6 to 3, which is the 27-to-1, the omega-3, and then they take omega-6, because the test looks at 11 different fatty acids. They then give each one of those markers a value and divide by 3, and that percentage should be 90 to 100%. But as you can see, this person's at 0%. That's not good, but the good news is that percentage will go up just by taking the balanced oil. Omega-3 index, you want this to be 8 to 12%, as the woman mentioned earlier. People who are 8 to 12% live at least 5 years longer and without disease or any added chronic illnesses. Average person in the United States is under 4%, is what I've experienced. So this person right here, here's your confirmation. There is not enough omega-3 in the cell membrane, because that's what the test tests, is the cell membrane, right? So we're not just drawing blood and testing what's floating around in your blood. We're looking at the membrane. Okay, so this person needs to increase that. Then you go to mental strength, or actually going back. I had this, and I have it in place because it really summarizes a lot, right? So the arrow is pointing to where the average person in the United States is, and the people who live the longest is above that. Look at them on average: 8 to 10%, 8 to 11%, 7 to 9%. So it just gives additional insight into the importance of increasing our omega-3s. Then we have the mental strength. Now we're talking about brain health, right? Everything from the neck up. I've had 32 of my private clients who had dry eye, keyword had, and now they don't have dry eye. And the only thing that they changed in their life is they started taking balance oil. This is where you start to see improvements with brain fog, reduce the risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, as Dr. Lustig mentioned. And this is the number that you want to see improve. And as you bring in more omega-3, because one of the fatty acids they are looking at is DHA, which is from the neck up. Then we have cell membrane fluidity, which is what we're talking about all day. All the people that exercise a lot who aren't consistently taking a product like balance oil, their cell membrane fluidity is not going to be good. It's going to be red. And this is something that they want to improve. And as they improve this, it's going to help with muscle recovery. It's going to help with protein synthesis if they want to build muscle. It's going to help with performance. It's going to help with everything on a cellular level. Everybody benefits from having this in the green and not in the red. And then you have arachidonic acid, which this is omega-6. And I have tested 3 of my clients and did a comparison where they started in the red here, and we compared it to what they call a C-reactive protein that a lot of doctors will prescribe. And they were in the red there. And this is all around inflammation. When their arachidonic acid number got better, so did their C-reactive protein get better. See, your arachidonic acid is a precursor for narrowing of the arteries, which is not good. Increased risk of blood clots, which is not good. Increased risk of stroke and heart attack. Everybody benefits from having this test done. Everybody. Here's one of my clients, Linda. Linda has lost a lot of weight. This is before she learned about the balance oil. She hadn't had a test done. And then we did her test. As you can see, she's 69-1. So she looked good on the outside, but on the cellular level, we were dying. 4 months later, this is her test. 2 months later, it went to 3.6. After that, she went into balance. Then it got even better. And I have an updated test. I haven't updated this, so don't be mad at me, you guys. But we have her updated test, and I can tell you right now, she's 100% here. And I can't remember these two. So everything got better. And that's Linda. Now I believe we started in the yellow and went to the green. Okay. And I believe this is midway and went to the green. And I believe we started in the yellow. So 9-1 is yellow. If it was 9.1-1, it would have been red, but got to the green. Here's Sandy, and I haven't updated this. So let me just be clear. I just wanted to highlight her cell membrane fluidity. After being on the balance oil, she went here, and now her fluidity is better. All her numbers are better. And I have an updated one with Sandy. I believe all green. Yes, I think she's in the complete green. Okay, Sandy, I don't know if you're there, but you can text in the chat. I believe she's green completely. So I will update that so we can all see it. So here's the deal. Even if you don't change the way you eat, but you increase your omega-3s, that's going to be a win. And in this study, you can see it as they looked at people who smoked and didn't smoke. And instead of me telling you, I'm going to let Dr. Rhonda Patrick share with you in this short little conversation she has with a podcaster. She talks about the importance of getting your omega-3 index number higher and what that means as it pertains to the study that I just mentioned.
The thing that's amazing with the omega-3 index is that people that have the 8% omega-3 index have a 5-year increased life expectancy compared to people that have 4%.
5 years.
Year.
Think about 5 years of being around your loved ones, doing amazing things, enjoying life. 5 years.
5 years. And there's studies showing that they're like, you're much less likely to get Alzheimer's disease if you have a high omega-3 index. So the quality of life is better as well. And I was telling you this yesterday, and I like talking about it because it blows my mind every time.
Yeah.
The smoke, so they took this cohort of people and they were smokers in there. There were smokers and there's non-smokers. And they looked at their omega-3 index and they found that the smokers that had a high omega-3 index of 8%, so these are smokers that are like, I need the fish oil, I'm smoking, you know. They had the same life expectancy as the non-smokers with the low omega-3 index.
That is insane. You could be somebody who's running every day but not getting enough fish oil, and then somebody who's, smoking a pack of Marlboros and taking fish oil, and you're going to live the same amount, roughly?
Unbelievable. Okay.
The thing...
All right, you guys. So here's a little video my daughter had put together. And I went longer than I wanted to, but as this is playing, the soda that's going in there is what we're consuming when it comes to these omega-6s. And that's inflammation. The goal is to start getting in enough omega-3s. And not just any omega-3, but one that has polyphenols. Because as we talked about exercise, those polyphenols that's part of this product help to protect those omega-3s from oxidative stress. It literally helps like a chaperone carrying those omega-3 fatty acids to the cell membrane and into the tissues. And in doing that, we reduce inflammation. And if you reduce inflammation, you help a whole host of challenges people are being faced with. Because when you go a long time without these omega-3s, like I was looking at a paper that I was putting together, it really highlights cellular health declines. You don't have that ATP production. That's a big part of your energy. Chronic inflammation continues to increase. And as I said, it starts to express itself in different ways. Brain and mood begin to suffer. Behavior starts to get worse. If you have a kid with ADHD and they don't have an adequate amount of omega-3 and they're 9, what do you think life is going to be like when they become a teenager and they still don't have an adequate amount of omega-3? Heart and circulation problems. Look around with people with neuropathy. All of this ties in the heart conditions people are dealing with. I mean, inflammation is absolutely horrible. Then in the article, I start talking about like brain health and the importance of that for dealing with concussions. I mean, this is serious stuff we're talking about. And the deeper you get involved with it, the more you realize that this product is unique. And it's the only one in the world at this very moment, because it does have a patent, that has the proprietary blend to include polyphenols with omega-3s. So when you look at that bottle, don't just think fish oil. Think 60% of what's in that bottle comes from omega-3s. 40% comes from olives unripe olives in the form of polyphenols. Then they add a few other things to include vitamin E and some vitamin D3. And that's what makes this synergistic formula ideal. And when you compare it to other products out there, go look at the one you have at home. You're not going to have polyphenols in it. It's not going to happen. It's not out there. I've looked at 19, and every person that was taking a fish oil or omega-3, however they want to define it, when we did their tests, because it all comes back to the test, they failed miserably. And when you look at the quality of the product, there's no comparison. Again, who do you know that's dealing with some of these issues? Before they had that autoimmune condition, they had systemic inflammation. They just didn't know it. Before they had fibromyalgia or multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, there was inflammation already breeding in the body. And over time, it expresses itself into these conditions. That is the fact. And sometimes when I share this with people, they go, well, why didn't my doctor tell me this? I'm sorry your doctor didn't tell you this. They don't even train doctors on the details of this. This test wasn't even invented until 2004. It wasn't even commercialized until 2009. I just found out that I could make this available a little over a year ago. And I'm in the clinical space. And every doctor I talk to, it's the first time they're hearing about it. And guess what? They all become a customer and they all get the test. And when people say, well, why do they get the test? I go, are you paying attention to what I'm going over? It's because it makes sense. It makes sense. If someone is in the business of health and I share with them this test, share with them this data, and they don't want to get the test or don't see the value in the balanced oil, there's nothing to talk about. That person has no credibility at all. Now, it's different if it was makeup, and I'm not talking about makeup. It's different about, I don't know, maybe an energy drink. We're not talking about that. We're talking about inflammation that is real, that shows up in some really bad things to include cancer. And if I can find out where I am and do something about something that's harming many people, why wouldn't I do that? You would. And then you find out that it's very affordable. Okay. So you got the oil, you got the test, you get started for $115. Next month, you pay $45 for the balanced oil. My mom used to pay $90 a month for Omega XL. When we did her test, she was 32-1, which means that the Omega XL she was taking consistently for 4 years was not working. We know because she got a test. She starts taking the balanced oil, and now my mom is 2.7-1. We know it's working because we did a test before she started taking it, and we did a test after she was on it for 4 months, and that's where my mom is. So she takes it every day. My kids take it every day. Now, this test alone can retail for $170. You can probably get the test, I think, for $125 if you are a customer already with whoever introduced you to all of this. But why would you do that when you can get the bottle with the test for $115?